There's a lot of Viltrumites in Invincible comics, from hybrids to traders, but who is actually the strongest Viltrumite? Well, today I'm here to find out. Before we get into the video, there's a massive spoiler warning for both the comics and the show, so if you don't want to get spoiled, don't watch this video. Also, can we reach the like over 100 likes? Okay, let's get straight on into it. In last place we have regular Viltrumite children like Carmen and Anissa. We don't really get to see their full potential. For example, Carmen, Lucan's child, already a Viltrumite power at a young age, but he wasn't much of a threat to anyone. He once stood up to Robot, but Robot easily put him in his place. He also confronted a bully, which is about the extent of his feats. Overall, an average Viltrumite child with powers would likely rank at the bottom. At 21st place we've got another batch of Viltrumites, this time Thraxan and Viltrumite hybrids, and I'm not talking about the big names like Oliver, Ursaal or Onaan. They're the elite level Thraxan Viltrumite hybrids, basically in a whole different tier. I'm talking about the other thousands of Thraxan Viltrumite hybrids, mostly Thragg kids. Yeah, them. The ones he doesn't really care about because of their Thraxan DNA. They're weaker than the average fully grown Viltrumite as well, and honestly they're super easy to take out. Like in the comics, when they were trying to fight guys like Mark and Nolan, they were dropping left and right, just by flying into them, because Nolan and Mark are absurdly durable. Most of these kids are basically just cannon fodder compared to the heavy hitters. At 20th we've got all the no-named average Viltrumites. These are background dudes you see getting tossed around in fights or showing up just to get clobbered. Most of them are still way above the standard Thraxan hybrids just because of their fully blooded Viltrumite DNA. They've got insane durability, crazy healing, and fight that actually means something. So if Thragg's weaker hybrids try to mess with them, it's basically over before it starts. In the comics you see a ton of these guys just getting wiped out by bigger players like Mark or Nolan, or sometimes even thrown around by the Viltrumites as a look how tough we are flex. They're not elite, but they're still a big step up from cannon fodder hybrids. In 19th we have Thula, who's one of those Viltrumite who actually gets a bit of screen time. Unlike most of the unnamed ones, she has a weapon in her hair used to slash her opponents, which is pretty cool. But when it comes to raw power, Thula isn't exactly top tier. She fought early comics Mark with no training while he was holding back, and she was actually struggling against him. And when he was locking in, Mark was actually winning. She also later got pretty easily dealt with by Omni-Man. Even later, she survived an encounter with Battle Beast. To be clear, survived is the key word. She didn't really fight him, just barely made it out alive. Combine that with the fact that she was almost defeated by a holding back Mark, and it's fair to say Thula ranks as one of the weaker named Viltrumites overall. In 18th place we have the Mark variants. While some of them can rank near the very top, most fall around this level due to their lack of experience and notable feats. One of them was even killed by a yo-yo, which says a lot. However, if they're bloodlusters, I think most of them could beat Thula. If this video reaches the like goal, I'll make another video ranking all the Mark variants from weakest to strongest. In 17th place sits Terra Grayson, the daughter of Mark and Eve. Though unlike her mother, she doesn't inherit any of her atom bending abilities, carrying only Viltrumite DNA. On paper though, that lineage should make her incredibly dangerous, but in practice, Terra barely does anything in the comics. She doesn't have any standout battles or impressive showings to scale from, which is why she lands this low despite her heritage. That said, by the end of the series, she lived through roughly 500 years and probably had some combat experience, which would likely make her more capable than most Mark variants. Still, without any real feats to back it up, she remains more of a potential fighter than a proven one. At 16th place is Vidor. He was the only one of the 3 Viltrumites to be killed by Omni-Man on Thraxan, but that doesn't mean he was actually the weakest. In fact, he performed the best in the fight, managing to land several direct hits before ultimately being overpowered and killed by Omni-Man. Lucan and Thula both survived the encounter, and Lucan will appear later in the rankings, even though he fared worse against Omni-Man than Vidor did. I will get to that later. In 15th we have Onaan. He's a Thraxan Viltrumite hybrid, which means his potential isn't quite as high as a pure Viltrumite or even a human Viltrumite hybrid, but despite that, both he and his sister Ursaal were actually respected by Thragg. They're the only 2 of his children who earned that from him. That already puts Onaan among the elite Thraxan hybrids. On top of that, Onaan didn't just get stomped by Mark, he actually gave him a real fight and managed to scuffle with him before ultimately being killed. And at this point in the story, Mark is already around Omni-Man's level, which is huge, so that alone puts Onaan comfortably above characters like Thula, especially since he was struggling against a much weaker version of Mark. Also, I think Onaan did a better job at fighting Mark than Vidor did against Omni-Man. In 14th we've got Oliver Grayson, Mark's brother. Oliver is a Thraxan Viltrumite hybrid, but as he got older, his Viltrumite DNA basically took over, so he ended up being pretty much like a full-blooded Viltrumite, just maybe with a bit less potential. Even when he was young, Oliver was seriously powerful, strong enough to hold his own against a Mark variant, and even able to take down the Mulder twins. As a teenager, he was bold enough to fight Thragg, which didn't go great, but the fact that he survived says a lot. As he got older, he started looking more and more like Mark, and was pretty much on the same level in terms of speed. Eventually, he stepped up to save Terra from Thragg, giving him a bit of a fight before ultimately losing his life. In 13th, we've got Ursaal, another Thraxan Viltrumite hybrid, and Onaan's twin sister. Honestly, based on her feats, she seems like the strongest out of all the Thraxan hybrids. She went up against Kregg and held her own, and there wasn't even a clear winner in that fight, which says a lot about her level. She also fought Eve and actually made a retreat. Yeah, Eve was weakened after losing her leg to Robot, but still, making someone as powerful as Eve fall back is impressive. On top of that, Ursaal saved Mark from Rex's robots, which adds even more to her resume. With all that considered, I think Ursaal clearly stands out as the strongest of the Thraxan Viltrumite hybrids. In 12th place I've got Lucan. He's a veteran Viltrumite who can actually go toe to toe with Omni-Man for a bit. Not as well as Vidor in that fight, but still impressive. He even managed to break Omni-Man's back. Yeah, it was mostly because Omni-Man was caught off guard, but that's still crazy. What really puts him above a lot of the other characters like Vidor, though, are his other feats. He straight up fought against Thragg and actually won, even though it was basically a 1v4 situation. On top of that, he was the first one brave enough to talk back to Thragg, and that wasn't even his peak. After the 500-year time jump, he was still active, still fighting, and still helping Mark out like a real one. A fight between him and Ursaal could honestly go either way, but I think Lucan's experience would give him the slight edge. In 11th place, I've got the Executioner Viltrumite, specifically the one who fought Battle Beast. This guy gave Battle Beast such a good fight, the same guy who fought against arguably the strongest Viltrumite, we'll talk about him later, and nearly stalemated him. This is enough to rank this no-named Viltrumite above everyone below him. In 10th place I've got the other Executioner Viltrumite. Even though Battle Beast is stronger than these versions of Nolan and Alan, individually I think fighting both Nolan and Alan at the same time is actually harder than fighting the Battle Beast alone, which is why I rank this Executioner above the other one. Plus, during the fight, Nolan even says this Viltrumite is so strong he could be the pride of the Empire, which backs up my point. Overall, this guy would beat anyone ranked below him. Next up is Argall, Nolan's father and Mark's grandfather. Even though Argall is really old and Viltrumites get stronger with age, he doesn't actually have any concrete feats. Still, since he was the ruler of Viltrum at its peak, I have to rank him above all the nameless Viltrumites and the ones with little to no accomplishments. Thragg clearly respected and looked up to Argall too, so even without feats, it just makes sense narratively that a Viltrumite ruler would be stronger than his own subjects. In 8th, we've got Thaedus, the guy who actually assassinated Argall. He's the oldest Viltrumite we've seen in the comics, even older than Conquest and Argall. Since Viltrumites get stronger with age, that means Thaedus would basically be in his prime. Feat-wise, he held his own against General Kregg and was actually going toe-to-toe with him, though Kregg seemed to have the slight edge before Alan jumped in to help. He also fought Anissa, and again, she had a small advantage over him, but it wasn't a stomp. His biggest feat is that he actually helped Nolan and Mark destroy a weakened planet, which is still insane, but right after that, Thragg no-diffed him, so it's hard to rank him super high compared to the absolute top tiers. At 7th I've got Anissa. There's actually an argument that she could be above Conquest, Nolan and even Kregg based on some feats. For example, in issue 72, Mark kills Conquest in a brutal 1v1 fight with no help. Then in issue 106, Mark and Nolan are basically equal in strength, they arm wrestle and mostly draw, and Nolan only really wins because Mark gets distracted. But in issue 1110, I'm going to say Anissa beats Mark, because I can't really go into detail about what actually happens because YouTube might take my video down, but technically she comes out on top. That might make you think she's above Nolan and Conquest, but I don't buy that. Mark wasn't mentally okay at the time because he'd just broken up with Eve and he wasn't really fighting back properly. He even states this himself. Narratively, I also see Anissa below both Nolan and Conquest. Nolan was able to seriously threaten her and almost kill her, and Conquest is just Conquest. He's an absolute menace. That said, I do think Anissa is above Thaedus, since she had the slight edge over him in their brief fight. So at minimum she clears him, but you can definitely argue her higher. At 6th place I've got Conquest, and yeah, before anyone gets mad at me, hear me out. We only see Conquest fight Mark and Eve, and he loses both times. In their second fight, in issue 72, Mark straight up kills him, with no help, which is a huge anti-feat for Conquest. After that, we basically never see him again outside of alternate universes, so he just doesn't have any solid feats for me to rank him any higher. He even admits in issue 72 that Mark is almost as strong as Nolan, and then Mark goes on to kill him, which basically implies Nolan should still be above Conquest anyway. And I know his song is called the second strongest Viltrumite, but that was in season 3, which is issue 61, which means a lot of other characters have gotten stronger since then, so I just can't justify putting him any higher on this list. In 5th place we've got General Kregg, who is currently the second in command of the Viltrum Empire in the show, and technically the oldest living Viltrumite at the end of the comics. Kregg has fought Thaedus and had the slight edge, and he also fought Alan the Alien to a stalemate, when Alan was already around Omniman's level, if not stronger. On top of that, Kregg helped beat Thragg in a 1v4 alongside Lucan, Anissa and Thula, which is insane when you think about it. Even Conquest was straight up scared of Kregg, which says a lot considering how terrifying Conquest usually is. Conquest might be physically stronger overall, but in a straight 1v1 I think Kregg takes it. Conquest lost to a version of Mark who wasn't even on Omniman's level, yet while Kregg was already keeping up with Alan at that tier, and after the 500-year time skip, Kregg is almost certainly even stronger than before, which gives him another advantage over Conquest. In 4th place we've got Oliver Grayson, aka Omni-Man. This guy might have the best feats in the verse. He tanked 2 laser blasts stronger than nukes, survived being pulled into a black hole, and casually 1v3'd other Viltrumites. Granted, he got sneak attacked and lost in that fight, but still, he basically almost 1v3'd them. He also helped Mark and Thaedus destroy a weakened planet like it was nothing. I've already explained why Nolan's above Conquest, and also he even went toe to toe with Thragg in a real tough fight. He didn't win, but he put up a serious fight before ultimately dying. All of these feats easily put him near the top of this list. In 3rd place I've got Markus Murphy, Anissa and Mark's son. Even though he's technically a young Viltrumite at around 500 years old when the series ends, he is still ridiculously strong. He took over the mantle of Invincible when Mark stepped away and basically had to deal with the same insane challenges Mark faced. That's how he got so much experience so fast. What really puts him above everyone else below him is he fought Emperor Mark to a stalemate. Yeah, Mark probably wasn't trying to seriously hurt him, but still, holding your own against arguably the strongest Viltrumite ever is an insane feat, and that's what makes Markus next level. And the runner-up has to be Thragg, hands down, the strongest Viltrumite before the time skip. He completely outclassed Thaedus, beat Nolan, and even took down Battle Beast. Mark had to pull out every trick in the book, robot suit, even flying Thragg into the sun, just to finally get the win against Thragg. Thragg might have been the strongest character pre-time skip, but post-time skip, Emperor Mark takes the crown. I'm talking about the leader of the Viltrumites. At 25, he already gave Thragg one of his toughest fights of his life, and think about Mark at 525. He's way more powerful. He casually beats end of series Alan. Yeah, Alan, the guy who gets stronger after every fight. Even after 500 years of Alan leveling up, Mark was still stronger. Emperor Mark is definitely the strongest Viltrumite. But what do you all think? Sound off in the comments. And seriously, are you ready to finally see Thragg in the show?